Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. We're going to be doing a little bit of experimenting. We're going to see what the results of our experiments from Wednesday were. So if you didn't catch the Wednesday stream, we did some vertical pours in PVC pipes. We had a silicone mold too. And we were kind of testing different techniques of pouring vertically. This is a way to kind of save a little bit of money. You're not wasting as much resin if you're pouring into a tube. You don't have those corners on the blanks. All kinds of different stuff, and it can kind of work a little bit better for certain types of projects anyway. So I wanted to kind of hone in my skills. I don't do a lot of vertical pours for pen blanks. All of the blanks that I pour for my store, I do horizontally in a big block mold, and then I cut the blanks out of that. Pouring vertically, you don't have a lot of cutting to do afterwards. But I think the biggest drawback, and one thing that kept me from really pursuing vertical pours off the bat, is you don't really know what's going on the inside. The outsides of the blank are just where the resin kind of went down the sides of the tube, the outside of the mold, let's say. And so there's really not a very good way to see what the results really are on the inside. If you pour a block and then cut your blanks, you see what's on the inside on each blank, but it's a whole lot more work. So I'm thinking about converting my Alumilite clear, like the pearly blanks that I sell, to vertical, and I wanted to kind of, do a little bit of testing, and I thought, why don't I bring you guys along as well? That way you guys can maybe save a little bit of time and throw out the methods that really suck, basically, not waste your time on that. And also just learn some tips and tricks, I guess, watching me either fail or, succeed with this stuff. So what we're going to do, we're not going to make a bunch of pens. All I'm going to do is just turn these down. Again, I don't know exactly what's going on the inside of these blanks. I really don't. That's the problem with vertical pours. That's why I didn't do it. It would have required me to turn a bunch of blanks and spend a little bit more time. And like I said, I was just kind of used to the block mold type pours off the bat. So we're going to just kind of turn these back on the lathe and try to get an idea of, what does the inside of these things look like? What do our tests show? So we did a couple of different experiments, kind of poured slightly differently. Go back and check out that replay is up if you want to see the different ways that we, actually poured these things. We did 3 types of experiments. We did one where we just kind of poured it and that was it, walked away, put it in the pressure pot. We did one where I was kind of holding 2 cups at the same time. That one, honestly, that test didn't go that well because I didn't have the cups, the spouts, kind of close enough to each other off the bat. So that one, I think we might throw that test out because I didn't do it the right way. But the third one, I kind of had 2 cups and we were just using 2 colors. And I went back and forth in each tube. And we also had little sticks that I kind of pulled out, and maybe we'll give you a little bit of a swirl action. So we got 3 tests. We'll start with the one that we did the first, off the bat, basically just dumping it into the PVC pipes without doing anything else to it, and then putting it in the pot. So it should be pretty fun though. I'm excited. I got a couple of other little updates, some more information. I did a little bit more research. So one of the issues that I brought up on Wednesday is that PVC pipes are not so if you go buy a 3/4 inch PVC pipe, the inside diameter of this is not 3/4 inch. It's not 0.75. It's like 0.815. And I was a little bit worried that, if you were going to, well, for me, if I'm going to be selling blanks, one of the advantages that I like about the vertical pour system is rather than me just making 5-inch blanks or even 6, the way that I do it now, that's not really long enough for people that are doing kitless pens. So the nice thing about this is if I can find a good method of pouring these things that is pretty consistent and I'm getting good results with, it doesn't really matter how long the blank is. You can make a 12-inch blank, you can make a 5-inch blank. It's all going to be the same technique, and I kind of like that idea. For me to switch, for doing the square types of blanks, you're going to be pretty limited on what you can really pour, and you're going to have to put your pressure pot on its side, and it's just going to be a little bit more of a hassle. Whereas this is cut your pipe longer. But being 0.815 with a PVC pipe, I was a little bit worried that some of the bespoke pen makers might not like that because I thought there was a limitation on the chuck. So a lot of those people use collet chucks. That's what I would, probably use. It's going to give you the best clamping power on something that's round. So the collets, you tighten this thing and it squeezes down on round objects. Perfect for round pen blanks. I thought, and I don't know where I got this bad information, but I thought the ER32 chucks that most people, that's what's pretty much available for the most part for wood lathes. I thought the max collet size was 3/4 inch, like 0.75. That's not true. I think it goes up to actually 1 inch. So it's really not a big deal pouring PVC pipes for that specific purpose. I don't think anybody's going to really care as long as you tell them what diameter the blanks are off the bat, as long as they know. There are people selling them in all kinds of different diameters, specifically for bespoke pen making. So it's not a problem at all, which is nice. I like that because PVC pipes are super cheap. It's a good way to get into vertical pouring. The clear ones are a little bit more expensive, but you don't necessarily need clear. Just go buy one of those 10-foot long PVC pipes down at the home center. It's pretty cheap, and you can cut a bunch of molds out of it at any length. That's the nice thing. Silicone molds are a little bit more expensive, and there's other types of things that you can do as well. But anyway, just wanted to kind of mention that. It's not a problem, so I'm going to probably go forward with PVC pipes personally. The other thing, what was the other thing that I was going to say? There was another thing. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to mention is I might have been going a little bit too hot on the temperature that I was waiting for. Now, I was getting extremely good color separation, but looking back, I actually think that dropping that temperature down a little bit, I think I was pouring about 125 Fahrenheit. That might have been, I think that was a little high. So I'm actually going to do some more testing, myself. I got a lot more testing before I actually convert my pen blanks to this. I need to get, a lot of repetitions pouring and finding a method that I like before I would, consider switching my product line to that. I have the other method down. But I'm going to be probably experimenting a little bit lower. Now, again, the temperature in your shop is going to affect this, and things kind of, can get kind of squirrely on you really quick with temperatures and when to pour and how to pour and all that kind of stuff. But I think that given all of the temperature in the shop and all that kind of stuff, I think I probably would have been better off pouring at at least starting to pour at like 110 to 115. That I think would have been better. Now, I would have loved to do some experiments in the last couple days, but the temperature in the shop went down, so it would have thrown the experiments off. It wouldn't have been the same thing really, because it was like 85 to 87 in my shop, which it seems kind of silly that like a 7-degree temperature difference is gonna really throw off results, but it does. So I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm sure it's gonna probably go back up to 85 in the shop in the next few days, and so I'll do a little bit more testing, and I'll let you guys know on future streams what we get from that. So let me stop real quick and see what we had. A rainy Maryland. Yeah, it's been raining here. Oh my God, we went hiking on Thursday, and it's a good thing we didn't get caught out there. It didn't rain on us there. Driving home, I mean, it was just sheets of rain, which doesn't happen that much. It was just dumping, and it's been raining yesterday. So how long did I, that's a good question. So what I do with PVC pipes, again, spray it really well, especially on the first time you use a PVC pipe. Really give it a good coating with your mold release. I typically just wait overnight. So, typically I'm pouring stuff in the afternoon. I'm going to put it in the pressure pot, go home, come back. The next day I'm going to pull it out. I find it just demolds really easy at that point if you wait the next day. Now, you don't have to wait, with Alumilite Clear Slow. It depends on your resin, but you can pull these things in like 2 to 4 hours if you wanted to. But what I find is the majority of the blank, the mass of the structure is cured. It's fine. You could demold it. But do you see these little wisps on the top? The problem is those things are not really, they're still really like sticky. And so that's what's causing it to be hard to get out, is there's going to be some little bits basically that are still kind of sticky, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. Plus, all resins shrink slightly while they're like over the curing process. And so, especially with urethanes, If you give it like a day, I mean, they don't shrink that much. I mean, we're talking like minuscule amounts, but it is gonna shrink slightly while it's curing, and it just makes it easier to get out. So that's what I recommend. If you're in a hurry, you can just beat the heck out of it. And I still have to use, like a dowel to kind of push them out, but they usually just kind of pop out, and it's not that big of a deal. So let's see, 21 millimeter, yeah. Same. 21, so I think, yeah, 21. Let me look up something real quick. So 0.81, I'm pretty sure I've checked it. It's around 0.815 is the inside diameter, something like that. And so you're looking at like, that's like 13/16, and 21 millimeters is just a tad, like a thousandth, a 10, well, let me just give you the numbers. So 13/16 is 0.8125. 21 millimeters is 0.8268. Okay, so either way, with one of those two, you should be good. But like I said, you can even get and I actually have a 13/16 collet on the way. I got it from a place called littlemachineshop.com. I've purchased things from them before in the past. It's kind of like a super, it looks like the website's from the 90s or something. It's terrible, but I have purchased stuff from them in the past, and everything was good to go. And it's already on its way. It should probably be here in the next couple days. So I got a 13/16. I think that's probably going to be enough for my needs. But I was talking to Chad actually, and he thinks that you can get a 1-inch collet for an ER32 chuck. Now, you can get collet chucks. So there's an ER40 and an ER50. So you can get different collet chucks, but some of them will not fit on your wood lathe. They're not like, threaded for like a 1-inch 8 or 1-inch, 1 1/4 inch 8 TPI. If you could find one with a taper, then you're fine. But so getting the bigger chucks may be a little bit more of a problem, but you should be able to go up to about 1 inch. And you can get them in millimeter or inch, depending, but it should go up to about that size. So let's see here. Oh, and one other thing that I was talking to Chad about this a little bit, and one other thing that he said, which I kind of thought this might be the case, but a lot of times bespoke pen makers will actually true up the blank first. So that's another reason why, even if they don't have a 13/16 or a 1-inch or whatever, like if all they have is a 3/4 inch collet. I think part of the reason I was under that impression, I did see somewhere, somebody said that it only goes up to 3/4 inch with the ER32 chuck, but every single kit that I've ever seen or set of collets, generally the ones that I had seen only go up to 3/4. So I just kind of assumed that was correct. It's not correct, but you will have to go out and get specific, collets, purchase them one at a time. It was pretty cheap. It was like 13 or 14 bucks for just the collet, the 13/16 collet. But so a lot of people will true these things up, and they can fit whatever, once you've trued up the blank, not using a collet, let's say you just grab it with like your drill jaws or something like that. You true up the surface, and you can get it down to whatever diameter you want, and it'll work fine. Yeah, Little Machine Shop, they're pretty good. I just wanted to, if anybody went to that website, I'm just saying, it's so old that it almost looks kind of shady, but it's fine. Everything's good. So let's see here. And Michael has his granddaughter's birthday, so he popped in and said hi. So he's probably gone, but happy birthday to her. That's cool. All right, so you can get a 25 millimeter. Nice. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that I let everybody know that the 3/4 is not the largest size you can get. So, okay. Taking cast right system. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, there's lots of different systems and things that you can do. All right, so before we begin turning these things down, I just also wanted to mention Easywood Tools, excuse me, is selling these t-shirts to support Vets Turn. And I talked about that on Wednesday's stream. It's basically a program where, combat veterans that have, PTSD or injuries in some cases, the Vets Turn organization basically gets them everything that they need to turn, tools, machine, you know, all that kind of stuff, plus instruction, and get them turning to kind of, you know, as like a therapy kind of thing, a therapeutic type thing, especially for like the PTSD. It's a really awesome program. And so Easywood Tools is making these shirts, selling them, and 100% of the profit goes to Vets Turn. So I got a link that you guys can use if you want to pick up one of these t-shirts. They're really cool t-shirts. These are all turning tools, you know, kind of American flag looking thing. And then some pretty cool stuff on the back. But yeah, it's kind of almost like the Punisher thing too. So anyway, just wanted to kind of, you know, promote that and, you know, let everybody know that you can help support that. I'm probably going to put a box of blanks together and do like an auction next week on Instagram. And put all the proceeds towards that. I need to kind of figure out the details on where I need to send the proceeds to. I don't know exactly how to do that. I need to hook up with Vets Turn, but pretty cool organization. And I thought, you know, let's get the word out there. So definitely, you know, mention it. I'll be doing some posts on Facebook and Instagram. I did a story real quick, but I'll put some posts up that'll be shareable, so you can, you know, share with anybody that you think might want to help support this. The last day, so this is kind of a limited time, the orders will be taken through August 22nd. So it's just this month, so we need to kind of get on this, but pretty cool thing. So I've been wearing this with this shirt. I'll probably be wearing this all throughout August. I'm gonna have to wash it at some point, but it should be pretty fun. So all right, we're gonna switch over to the Canon camera. And like I said, I don't have the larger chuck, and actually a lot of the blanks that we poured, I was using a silicone mold that makes 7/8 blanks. So I'm just going to use, I have this old chuck that's got jaws that'll kind of just clamp down on these things. But once I get my larger collet, that's the way that I would probably even just start out with these things. I am not like a bespoke pen maker, so I don't have any system down for actually doing that type of stuff. If I got into it, I may do something different where I you know, turn down to a certain, or like true up the blank and do all that kind of stuff. But for today, we're just going to turn this down, turn it back, and just kind of see what's under the surface of this thing, and kind of see. So this is one of the first ones that we did, and all we did was just pour some resin in PVC pipes, and just kind of, we didn't twist it or do anything like that, just kind of poured it in and moved on. So that'll be the first one. We got a couple, and I'm going to turn a couple blanks back so we can kind of see. We poured 6 of them, but we'll turn back a couple of these things kind of quick. And let's see here. So I'm actually gonna flip this. I didn't cut these at all or anything, so this end is probably not very flat. I'm gonna flip it. This side is pretty flat. I don't really have to mess around. Okay, so we're on the right camera. Nice, that's awesome, Mike. Thanks for helping support the cause. Yeah, these shirts are really cool too. Whoa, that thing's wobbly. Let's see if we can get this thing a little bit less. That's probably why people true these things up, huh? What do you think? That's looking pretty funky. Wow. What is happening here? I wonder if this side's better. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. We're just going to go with it on this one. I don't really care if it's perfect or not. All right, let me get some eye protection on. There's all kinds of different ways that you could hold these. You could, well, 3/4 inch. You probably can't use just a regular drill chuck. Most drill chucks only go to about oh, that's why. My chuck's not tight. Okay. Step 1, tighten the chuck. God. I'm okay. Don't worry, guys. Wow, that thing is really out of round on that end. Okay, I guess it wasn't the chuck. This end of the pipe, it's just not particularly. Now this is a little bit soft as well, because it's only been a couple days. All right, we're just gonna hold it that way. Get this thing going. Let me get a different tool rest. So what are you guys all working on in your shops? You guys got anything cool going on? Any fun projects? Man, I can't believe we're already into August. Time is flying again. It's always flying. I got a little mark that helps me kind of set up my tool rest to be even. Right height. All right, we'll get this dust collection going. Maybe. There we go. Yeah, I've made a bespoke pen, but I don't claim to be a bespoke pen turner. Let me get rid of my watch. I don't need that. They're really fun to make. I really like them. I just don't really have time to hone my talents with that right now. But I think if I got into, you know, if I went back to like what I did mainly was just turning pens, I wasn't really worried about, you know, content and products. I was just gonna make pens, I would probably go that direction because I really like them. They're so much fun to make. So like I said, all we're doing is just kind of turning this back to kind of see what's going on inside. Looks like it's not really revealing anything completely different than what was really on the outside. Like I said, I was pouring these things pretty, you know, like late temperature wise, so it was pretty thick and we got really good color separation, but it just kind of piled up. Now it's a pretty cool look, but I don't think that this is the kind of blank that I would really want to make. So far, I think there are better ways to pour than just doing it the way I did. Now, again, the problem is these experiments are only so good, right? Because there's not only like temperature and like, you know, did you twist it or do anything? There's also the way that you poured it, like how much resin did you pour each time, and you know, there's a lot of things that go into this, so it's not like this is like a perfect experiment in any way. But again, if you're really curious and you didn't see Wednesday's stream, you can go back. Again, this is the first experiment that we did, the first pour in the PVC pipes, and you can kind of see, you know, how much was I pouring and what was going on, and this is the result of that method of doing it, you know. So I think what I'll do is just kind of dig in. It's a little chattery because it's pretty long. Alright, so let's get you guys lined up with this thing here. I'll drop you down just a little bit. And we'll zoom in. So you can see, like I said, there's not a whole lot of difference showing up here. Okay, that's looking good on the screen. It's not bad, there's nothing wrong with this, but I would probably want to go for a little bit more, you know, twist in there, personally. And again, I think that just dropping the temperature down a little bit from when I pour, I think would make it kind of flow together a little bit more and kind of feather a bit more. It's always a trade-off. You know, the lower the temperature of the resin, the more it's going to kind of bleed. But, you know, for blanks like this, where we're talking just white and pink, some colors you may not want any bleed, and so you may have to kind of adjust things. But I think that a little bit of color bleed in this case probably ain't going to hurt anything. It's going to look pretty nice, actually. So, you know, I think maybe just starting at a lower temperature might kind of help this a little bit more. It won't be as thick when you're pouring it in, and you may get a little bit more, you know, action without even stirring it or doing the little wire thing that I did on the last ones. So let's take down a little bit more. Let's just go a little bit deeper on some of these parts, and then we'll switch to the other one like this, the same type of pour. Oh, you just started some listings on Etsy. That's really cool. Yeah, I remember the first time because I started on Etsy too. Very fun. That's cool. Good luck. May the buyers be out there finding you quickly. And now, one thing to also keep in mind, you know, like, this was one of the 3/4 inch blanks. One thing that I want to kind of point out is, you know, so if you're making a bespoke pen, a lot of times, you know, like the body and the cap are going to be like somewhere in this neighborhood of diameter, right? Whereas if you're making a kitted pen, you're going to be bringing that down quite a bit more. I tend to make mine a little bit on the fat side, but we're still a little bit kind of thick diameter wise. So let's keep going a little bit further. Hopefully this thing won't blow up in my face. Taking it down really far. We definitely do have a little bit of color throughout. It's not bad. I wouldn't call this like a failure. These are pretty decent looking blanks, honestly. Definitely have that kind of striation though, where it's like blob, 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 you know, and that's kind of how I poured these things. But I do think you can make a pretty nice looking pen out of that. What do you guys think about this? No sales yet? Oh. Well, one thing I learned on Etsy is it takes a little while for like, you know, traction to take hold. Back in the day, and this is years ago, so this is not advice on how to use Etsy. I don't know how to do it anymore, but I did find back then that you know, spending a little bit of money on some ads, definitely at the beginning, helped a lot. That way you're just getting views on stuff and some traffic. So something to think about. I don't know how Etsy works right now, but it just sucks that you got to spend some money. Social media, that's how I did it mostly. You can get people to, like, personally, I didn't find the Etsy marketplace tools and all that stuff. Now, this was many years ago, but I didn't find it to be particularly useful. It was much easier to sell stuff, like market things on like Facebook and then send people to my Etsy shop, you know. So, but ads do drive traffic as well. All right, so let's chuck up another one of these guys. Let's see, I'm gonna turn this thing off for now. Maybe. There we go. So I'm not screaming at you guys. Kind of hold this thing up, but yeah, I mean, that's not too bad looking. It's an interesting look. And I think if you really wanted to go for this kind of, I don't know, like a tiger stripe almost look or something where it's really big, you know, you're gonna want to wait, you know, longer before pouring so that it's nice and thick and you get this nice, you know, edge. But you're gonna want to pour more resin in on each pour, you know. Less resin would be a little bit more mixed up a little, you know, in there. Nice. Yeah, well, keep up the good work. Takes a little while, but like I said, it'll get there. Okay, so again, this is the same type of thing, same type of pour that we did as that last blank. Get in there. That one's running a little bit more true. Let's see if maybe just spinning this thing around can help a little bit. That didn't help at all. Try flipping it. Maybe my PVC pipes are not very straight. Wow, that one's way off. I know I should probably be centering this. That might help a little bit. Center it on the tailstock. Run a little bit more true. I don't know that did anything. Let me just play with this thing a little bit here. Like I said, these things are a little bit soft, so I'm kind of clamping down on this. Fairly hard. Plus, this chuck is not the most amazing. I think the jaws are actually, they're not even really, they kind of are angled. It's not like dead flat in there. So who knows? Doesn't matter. Oh, that's terrible. Oh man. Okay, so let me flip it back around. I think it was actually better that way. Sometimes it takes a little finagling. I think that's about as good as we're gonna get. Okay, let's do this. Now, you really should be flattening the end and squaring it up and all that stuff, but like I said, we're just going for quick and down and dirty today. And we'll fire up the dust collection. kind of fun revealing the insides of these things. They're like geodes. What's on the inside? I'm really curious to see how the third batch turned out. I think using those pipes, or not pipes, but those little pieces of metal to kind of twist it up, mix it up a little bit. I really think that's gonna produce some pretty cool results. So let's stop and see where we're at now. Got a lot of pink right there. Somewhat similar. We have these kind of striations. We got a little bit of kind of bleeding, I wouldn't say bleed, but more mix here and there. But again, this one I might have poured just a little bit of white, or it kind of depends on how you poured stuff. And the thing is, you want it to be kind of, you don't want to make them exactly the same every time, but we're looking good. Let's keep on going here. See what we got down in. A little bit further in. A little bit thinner on this end than that. That's looking pretty good. Messy hot pour. Was the first one messy hot? Honestly I can't even remember. All I know is it was. Did I go a little bit high on that one? Yeah, it was the first one. I went pretty high temperature. It was almost maybe like almost up to like 130. Let's take some material off, stop. Yeah, so, talking about is this the worst that, you're gonna get? That's one of the things, when people are, say, hey, I wanna get into making pen blanks, and then they start asking about like colors. What should I use for color? And that's why I always say, I recommend going with micas, because as long as you don't just pour it like immediately, after you've mixed it up, as long as you wait to some temperature, and like with the Lumelite Clear Slow, or a Lumelite Clear, either one of those, so not Amazing Clear Cast, but the urethane ones. If you wait till like a minimum of like 95 to 100, you're gonna get pretty good looking results regardless. If you wait too long and it's literally like turning solid on you, that's where you're going to run into problems. If it's just super thin and below that kind of minimum number, it's going to bleed together. But as long as you're somewhere in there, you're not going to get bad looking results really. It just kind of comes down to what look are you kind of going for. And I'm trying to kind of hone in on a certain type of look. It's not going to be the same every single time. That's darn near impossible, but a similar type of look, most times, so that when you put a picture up, it's a good indication of what somebody's going to get if they buy that blank. That's what I'm looking for. But if that's not really if I didn't have to worry about that, I mean, I'm happy with this. This looks great, you know, to me. I wouldn't mind making a pen out of that, either kind. Definitely not throwaway blanks. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how this compares to the other ones that we did. It's really loud in the middle because that's where, you know, it can flex the most. So you could like, you know, I could like try and hold this, you know, and give it a little bit of support, but I don't really like messing around with that. I'll just deal with some squealing. So honestly, these look pretty darn good. I mean, there's still, you kind of have where there's sections. It's not like blended together really too much. I mean, there's some areas like that, but a little bit still kind of sectioned, but I don't know. Somewhat similar to the first one, but a little less chunky, a little bit more blending. And again, we didn't blend this together. We just literally dumped, you know, resin on top of each other. So I think that this is a pretty good test of the first one. I don't think turning this down any further is gonna, you know, produce any other information. So here are the two. So this was the first one, a little bit more chunks, whereas this one's got a little bit more, you know, mixed in. Both are pretty decent looking pen blanks though. And one other thing that I also want to mention, you know, for it may come down to, we can do all these tests and they may look pretty similar, or let's just say that they all come out looking fine, right? Where, I mean, none of them are like, oh, that's a terrible, I would never want to, you know, if somebody bought that, they'd be mad, right? It may come down to all three of these tests, they all look fine, and so really, it may result in, it doesn't really matter, you know, what you do. You're going to produce decent looking results, which, I mean, if that's the case, that gives you a lot more leeway to, like, who cares, you know, like, mix it up a little bit, because it's not like people don't necessarily want the same blank every time either. I don't think. If you want that, then go buy a plastic one from Woodcraft. They make them the same on every single one. So this is the second pour. Now, I'm going to show you both of these blanks. I don't think these are going to show us a whole lot of anything because I really kind of screwed. This is one where these may not really look very good. What happened was I had two cups. I'm going to try and kind of give you guys a visual if I can. I don't really want to waste cups on this, but I'm just going to get some small ones. I got thousands of these. I'll kind of try and show you what happened on the overhead here. So, nope, that's not the right camera. Not at all. So I was pouring into this mold and I grabbed two paper cups. This is not going to work with plastic, but what I was trying to show you is you can grab paper cups and really just crumple them, and you can grab them in one hand, right? And the problem was though, so I had these two cups crumpled in my hands, but the spouts weren't like close. They were like far apart, and so I start pouring them and they're just, one's pouring in one hole, one's pouring in the other. And I'm like, this isn't gonna really work too well. And it was just because I wasn't holding it right. You need to get those spouts, you know, kind of like really close together. This is a terrible example, but you know, you want to get those spouts to be pretty close, and then you can do pretty good pouring. So, you know, some of this stuff takes a little bit of practice. If you only have two colors, I found that it was much easier just to hold the two cups. I just have way more control than just trying to hold these things and do all this, because I I don't practice that very often. But if you have 4 colors, the paper cup method and crumpling them, if you can get them, this is terrible. I know these aren't paper cups. I don't really want to waste the paper cup to show you guys. But if you can get your paper cups set up correctly, whatever, and hold, you could probably pour 4 in each hand if you really set them up right, and pour 8 colors at a time. So I did not do that though. I just want to make sure you guys all know that. I really screwed that pour up. So these ones may not be very good, is the point. All right, so these ones were that blue mold is a 7/8. So they're a little bit bigger. They run a little bit more true, that's nice. All right, so let's try these second pair out. Hold on a minute. I think I want to reseat my live center. Looked like it popped out. All right. And I'm just going to tighten my chuck up, make sure it's good. Okay. Let's see what we got on the inside. Alex is here. What's up, man? What are you up to? All right, let's see what we got for right here. So far, we got a lot of pink on this side and a lot of white right there. Still. I'm also trying to really hog off material, so the chattering is going to be probably a lot more than you'd normally get if you were actually just turning a pen. All right, so that's looking pretty good. It's looking a little bit better right there than just pink. A lot of pink there, but we still have a little bit of white. You might notice that kind of almost each layer is a little bit different, The thinner the diameter, the kind of different look you're going to get. No complaints really so far. This is a pretty good way to do it, where you can kind of see a little bit thinner and then A little bit thicker. I had a bit of pink right here. I had a blob on that one. Ooh, I like that, look. Bit of a blob right there. But even still, I mean, this would still be a really neat looking pen. You know, I mean, it's not like I hate this. I don't think this is exactly, I would want, I like the first one's better so far than this one. I think, anyway. Yeah, I've seen those cups. Yeah, that's my problem with those cups. I haven't tried one, but it just, the cleaning, like especially for what I do, I wouldn't want to have to like stop and then clean a cup every single time for blanks that are, you know, like if all I'm doing is pouring, like on a live stream, you know, you do this one thing and fine, but for multiple batches of stuff, I don't know. I think I'd rather just go with the other way. I don't think it's really necessary. I think, you know, I think that with a little bit of practice, and we're kind of learning that, I mean, I don't know that it's necessary to have specialized equipment necessarily. That's one of the things that I'm hoping to get out of these experiments, is that you can just use PVC pipe. That's one of the cheapest possible molds you can use out there. You don't need anything special. Throw some mica powder in there, mix up your cups, and just try and find, you know, the right temperature, the right starting time. I think that's, and I think there's it can vary. I don't think it's like it has to be 107.5 degrees Fahrenheit or, you know, anything like that. But I do think there's, you know, find a good temperature to start pouring at, kind of get a technique down. How are you doing it? And I think that you can get excellent results without a whole lot of fuss, you know. One thing that I do want to experiment with is just doing a dirty pour, not using a chambered cup, but just, you know, dumping the colors all in one cup. I've done that in the past. I haven't been super thrilled with it, but I think that that's one of those things where you really need to wait. Like, I would want to wait till like, so, you know, the way we did the first batch, it was 6 pipes. I just want to set this up and show you guys, for anybody that didn't see over here. Nope, that's not it. Oh man, there we go. So on the first one, we had it set up in this thing, and these are, you know, this ends up, we had 6 pipes, right? So the pipes were all pretty, they're not close, particularly close. These are a little bit closer, right? And so you're having to kind of move around. You can't just kind of dump. You have to do it very specifically into all these different pipes. And so, you know, we started at like it was almost at like 130 Fahrenheit. And so that was it was already kind of thick at that point, starting, right? And then you're making these little tiny pours. And over time, as these things are filling up and you're pouring them, that's getting hotter and hotter and thicker and thicker. But there's this time. It takes time is what I'm trying to say. From like 130 when you start pouring to by the time they're all full, you know, how much time went by and what temperature is it at on those last few pours. I'm thinking that if you're going to do a dirty pour, which means you take your cup, you know, let's say we had 3 or 4 colors, you had 4 cups and then you just end up dumping them all in the same cup. Well, I think that what you want to do is wait till, you know, closer to the end of when you got finished doing the other method. So like probably somewhere around like 140, then dump all your stuff in there. And I think you might get, you would want it pretty thick in the cup and then start doing your pouring. I think in the past I've poured the colors together into the same cup at like, you know, a fairly low temperature, and it just kind of moves around too much. It needs to be really thick when you pour them together. So I want to test that out. Hopefully that made sense. But basically wait even longer on something like that than you normally would. Am I on the right? No. I gotta switch to the other camera. That could have been terrible. Here we go. Yeah, I tried the silicone cups, just not the divided ones, but just normal. Where the heck are they? Yeah, like normal silicone cups. Because I was like, oh, that's brilliant. You know, it's easy to clean up and all that. What I found is they're too floppy. I really did not like how, you know, maybe you could find a firmer one, but the cleaning of it, you really, and I don't know if you guys watch Steve McDonald's channel, he said it right. I mean, you really need to clean these things right away. Otherwise, it is a complete pain trying to get all the little specks and things out later. I mean, it does peel off pretty easy, but you're going to spend so much time that you're better off wiping it out, you know, with denatured alcohol or whatever right away while it's still liquid. And I was just like, I just frankly don't have time for this. You know? So I gave up on those things. They didn't really work for me. I think, you know, my favorite cup for reusability, I think, are just paint mixing cups. That's the best way to go. But, you know, if you're trying to do that pinch method, holding a bunch of cups at once, you got to go with paper. Plastic ones aren't going to work. I don't know. It's kind of one of those tough things. You gotta. It's hard to just use one thing. Now the silicone cups, you could pinch a bunch of those together, I guess. I didn't think about that. That would be an easier way to do that. But you really do need to clean up right away to make it easiest on yourself. Another thing, you know, with those silicone cups, for me, doing live streams, I wouldn't want to have to stop and like spend, you know, 10 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever, cleaning them out every single time. So this doesn't look bad. I don't love how much pink is right here. That's a pretty big blob right there. But this is kind of nice looking. Okay, we're almost done with this one. Kind of a little bit of the same. Still not a bad looking pen, I don't think, but definitely not this would not be my choice if I had to pick a pen blank. I'd rather use one of those other first ones. But like I said, I really did kind of blow the way that I poured this, so I don't know that this is a super awesome example of anything. Oh yeah, white is really tough. White dyes weigh so much more. I mean, you're probably talking like it weighs 10 times as much as the resin or mica powders. And so it just kind of sinks to the bottom. This is just white pearl. But again, I mean, if you know, it's just one of those things where you have to wait a little bit longer, and that should help. So, you know, a lot of pink on this side, just one color, but this area is kind of neat looking where it kind of is intermixed a little bit, but it's almost a half and half kind of blank. All right, so let's chuck up this guy, kind of give you the beforehand. Again, we got a lot of pink on this side, a lot of white on this side. I don't know if that's gonna end up being the same as the first one or what. We'll have to see. Now, if you really get into this and you're going to be making a lot of these, and this is something I'm going to have to consider a little bit, but another thing you can do is, you know, PVC, like I said, is cheap, great, easy to get, but you know, you may find, especially if you hone in some kind of specific technique, you may find that it might be worth building a silicone mold of your own to suit your needs. You know, and at that point, you can buy like acrylic rod, set up your master mold, and like create something that holds, you know, 30 blanks at a time or something, you know, who knows. But that's something to think about also down the road if you were going to be going into making a lot of them and had specific needs with the way your mold is set up. You know, silicone molds are great because you can do that. You have that kind of control. I don't really think that I would make a ton at a time. And this is one of the problems, you know, especially when you're dealing with like something like color swirl like this and we're trying to get some kind of a technique. Well, the problem is you only have so much time. There's only so much window of time that you can pour because you have to wait until it's not going to just completely bleed together. And so how many blanks can you actually pour at once? That's the tough thing. Depending on your technique, you may not really be able to get more than 10 done at a time or something like that. Hey, what's up, Dave? Yeah, I think the 13/16 is coming like maybe next week, hopefully. I know it's already been shipped. I didn't look at like the actual tracking. Yeah, finding the right temp is really, I mean, that's my problem too, you know. And I'm going to stop real quick, and I just want to explain to people that, you know, the problem that I'm having starts with temperature, what temperature to pour. And I will say, even my block molds, I don't know if I mentioned this on Wednesday, but part of the problem is once the temperature started getting up to, you know, 85 to 87, whereas for most of the year in my shop, it's 68 to maybe 72. That's a lot cooler than 87 or 85. And so, but for like 3/4 of the year, if not more, I have a routine down. I have my temperatures totally dialed in. I have kind of how I pour, you know, methods and like the kind of a muscle memory of things. And then the temperature goes to 87, and no matter how many notes or videos I take, you have to get used to doing that again. And I kind of struggle because it's not only a temperature, but it's also the technique, timing of how fast you're pouring stuff, how thick it is, and all that. And so it's this combination. And don't feel bad if you're not getting the results that you want, you know, pouring it at the temperature that I pour at or somebody else is. I was having nothing but difficulty. The Think Pink blanks, I made a few batches and I had to throw out a few. I don't throw them out, but they sucked. They were not good, and I was pouring them the way that I normally do. So when things kind of change, you gotta do some testing, get that muscle memory back, you know, dial in that temperature. So don't feel bad if you're not getting the results that you want. It just, you gotta pour a few more, and hopefully the temperature and the conditions don't change on you too much. If I could, I would enclose. I was really thinking about enclosing the casting area here and air conditioning it in the winter and keeping the temperature 72 or whatever all summer. That way the temperature doesn't fluctuate much. I don't have to deal with this kind of stuff. But you know, for the content side of things, that would be for the production side of selling pen blanks. But for content, I mean, seeing me not get things perfect, I think is also helpful. So it's a lot cheaper not to enclose this thing. It would have cost thousands. Yeah, Valentine's pen. Well, so these are my Think Pink blanks. They're the pink for breast cancer awareness. So that's why I just figured, let's do it. We'll do these ones. Oh yeah, Eric has the same cup. Yeah, I know. I don't like those things. Alright, so I'm just scrolling through. I think I missed a few comments. Yeah, Steve McDonald's awesome. He does, and he has really, really good information. That's, you know, even if, like, let's say that you're just a pen turner, and Steve doesn't do turning stuff, but a lot of the resin tips and things that he goes over, and even in techniques and things, it's really interesting. They're very useful for whatever kind of resin casting you're doing. So if you're not subscribed to his channel, he does a lot of really cool stuff, very helpful stuff. Ah, you got a solution for casting different colors, huh? I'll be looking at that. Yeah, well, see, 3D printing, the problem is it's, at least like the resin 3D printing, that it's for me, it would be too much of a hassle to even mess with. I'd have to find something where you could you just couldn't mass produce enough of it. I wouldn't do it personally. Maybe on like a normal 3D print, I don't know. Yeah, the pressure pot does limit the length. But the 5-gallon ones are pretty tall. I mean, that should get you any kind of like bespoke, any length bespoke pen blank that you want to make if you have a 5-gallon pot. Okay, so let's get on this guy. All right, let's see what's on the inside. That's looking pretty good right there. And now this is the top end also. This is the bottom where we poured. A lot of pink there, but so far that's looking decent. Hey, what's up, Mark? What did you miss? You missed the first two. We did the first two. Well, or I'm sorry, the first pour that we did. This was in the PVC pipes, and this was the result. Not too shabby. Not exactly what I was going for, but I'll tell you what, these would make some fine pens. Can't really complain. And then we already did. One of the second pour that we did, one of the blanks. I just want to make sure that my chuck jaws are tight enough. a little bit of chattering going on. Yeah, we've just been kind of making a mess. A lot of white, a lot of pink. A lot of squealing. Like I said, I'm really just hogging off material to get to get there. A lot of white, a lot of pink. Pretty similar to the first one. Pretty half and half on this blank. I think it's even more so than the last one. Okay. Yeah, not a lot. We got a lot of white on this side, a lot of pink on this side. So, but again, this pour was the one that I blew. I really didn't do this right. This was the one where I crumpled the cups together, but the spouts were like they needed to be closer and they were out like that. So I'm not surprised that these ones just kind of, I don't love these. And what happened was I dumped a lot of each color at once in each tube. So I'm not really surprised that this is what we got. I am a little bit surprised that it's like half and half, I guess. But maybe this was one, like if you're pouring at the same time and you just keep pouring, maybe I just kind of, both streams were going down the tube and kind of came up together, You would want to kind of move it around a little bit more than I did, I think. So if you go back and watch the way that I poured this, that'll give you a good indication of how not to do it. Let's just say. And I'm going to go back and review, what I did exactly and take some more notes. I didn't really do that on, before today. I want to see what the results are and then actually go back. But we got a little bit more at the top, which I think at that point I was kind of doing it one cup at a time. But you really got just a lot of, one color on each side of these, which is not, these would be duds in my book. You want more color separation or more, I don't know, it's just not interesting, It's not a very good looking blank. That's kind of like if you just poured a bunch of pink, like if you were doing a horizontal, That'd be like you dump half of it in the bottom and then somehow like lightly pour the other half on top, and you just get these half and half blanks. So let's see here, what do we got in the chat? Yeah, the turntable, I've thought of that. That's kind of cool. Okay, so the third set, and I think these ones are gonna be, I'm hoping, my favorites. These were the ones where we poured it into the same silicone mold, the blue one. Get this out of the way. We didn't do that. Okay, so we were pouring into this, and I had those. So two things. I had 2 cups. We did 2 colors, 2 cups, and I just did kind of a back and forth thing, and I focused on one hole at a time, back and forth kind of thing. That was the pour, but I also had these little stir stick things, and I put these in first. Okay, so these were sitting in the tubes, and then I did this method. All right, and then when I had them full, I just kind of slowly pulled these out and kind of twisted them around a little bit. And I got to be honest, I think this is probably going to be my prediction is these are going to be the best looking blanks. I really felt, you know, I don't know what's going to be on the inside, but it just felt like that was the best, you know, that was the most successful pour when I was doing it. But the problem with that method is that's great if you only got 2 colors, but if you got 5 or 10 colors, you know, that's the other thing is depending on what colors and all that kind of stuff, what you're doing, you only have 2 hands, right? So, but you can still do it where you focus on one hole at a time if you wanted. To be honest, I think that you're probably better off. I'm gonna go back to the other camera. Like in the end, because you know, I'm not only gonna pour 2 color blanks, right? So I think in the end, I think you're better off trying to get your pipes, the holes, whether it's a silicone mold or I kind of showed you guys, I call it the Gatling gun. You know, rubber band a bunch of pipes together so that they're all close. And this is probably the way that I'm gonna go because I like this. But I think at that point you could have, you know, 10, 30 cups, it doesn't really matter. But I think that the best method of doing it is just gonna be like kind of one at a time, you know, and just kind of swirling it around like that. That's great if you only have 2, but I mean, even if you only had 2 colors, I think you're probably better off kind of just doing kind of a, you know, a random kind of thing. That's probably gonna be the way that I go in the end. And that's actually the way that I poured those brown and white ones, as well as these ones. These were like the first ones that I poured, and so that was 3 colors, and that's how I did it, just kind of randomly, and I got pretty good results doing that. But I didn't have those little stir sticks. I think that's going to really be the game changer on these things. You get a nice kind of swirl with that, in addition to the kind of randomness of just pouring a bunch of different things. But again, it also is going to start with what temperature am I starting at, you know? All right, so that's running pretty true right there. Look at that. Okay, third and final batch. And we might revisit this a little bit down the road on the stream. We'll see. I may just do like a regular video because that may just get more reach. Only so many people want to watch like a 2-hour video of me experimenting and talking. So it might be more useful to just, if I find a good method, just do a video on it and be like, this is how I'm doing it, you know? 5-10 minutes or whatever, 15. So you can see what the point is without, you know, listening and watching the whole process. So far that's looking pretty good. This is the top of the tube. This end. What's up, Yak? How's it going, man? Not as much chatter on this one. Yeah, I'm liking this. It seems more, I don't know, mixed up, I guess. There's the chatter we all know and love. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You know, these streams I think are way more valuable, but you have to be patient enough or have enough time to watch. You're going to get a lot more out of it than just saying, here's the technique. But, you know, if all you got is 10 minutes, it's much easier just to hear here it is, try it out, you know. That's why I like to talk, you know, like my thoughts through the process, because when I'm doing this kind of stuff, there's a lot of stuff going through my brain about why am I doing things, or, you know, what am I seeing as things are going on. You can understand the philosophy. A lot of times you don't even need to necessarily see exactly how something was done. You just understand what's going, like why. That's usually more important than actually seeing somebody do something. Yeah, I'm liking this. It's I mean, I don't know that we're gonna have a bunch of like swirls the way that I did that. I didn't like really focus on swirling it up. I just kind of moved it around a little bit while I was pulling it up. So they're gonna be kind of, you know, the streaks are maybe gonna kind of wrap. That would be like my hope, let's say, is you'd have a little bit of wrap to it, but they're really gonna be being pulled up lengthwise. So one thing I do want to mention also, or maybe reiterate, I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the reasons why I really never got into this stuff also with the vertical, I never really focused much time on it, was because I was making blanks horizontally, and you're going to get extremely different results doing horizontal blanks, like the swirl patterns and all that stuff. There's, as far as I know, there's really no way to get the same type of swirl pattern in a vertical pour as I get doing horizontal. And so I was always kind of like, you know, people kind of know what my blanks look like, all of them. And so I just kind of stayed away from it. I'm like, I'm just going to focus on horizontal. But what I've kind of decided is if I can kind of get this vertical pour thing down, I want to do this for my pearl blanks, the ones that are made with Alumilite clear. And then for my team color blanks, that's made with Alumilite white. I'm not even going to mess around trying to pour that stuff in vertical tubes. It's so thin and I'm using dyes which tend to bleed more, that I just think it's a futile, it would be a futile attempt. So I'm going to have slightly different things now going forward if I do decide to completely change the pearl color blanks down the road. But there's so many advantages that I see to doing it that way that I think I am going to move that way. But I just wanted to mention that, you know, you're going to get totally different looks pouring horizontally as you would, you know, going vertical pour. So just something to kind of think about. I lost my tool. Where's my tool? Here's my tool. By the way, I think that Carbide cutters, or tools maybe even, definitely cutters, are on sale right now at Turner's Warehouse. I think they're 15% off, so if you need to stock up on Carbide, you might want to check that out. I just got their like email newsletter on Wednesday. That was the headline. I'm gonna peel back the rest of this. All right, let's see where that's at. Yeah, so far I like this kind of pattern the best. And I think that we might have even poured a little bit earlier, like a lower temperature on these. Again, I'm gonna have to go back and you know, really look at what exactly did we do. And that, you know, that stream is up, the replay, so you can go back and look at how I did it, how I poured it, you know, all that stuff, the temperatures. But this is the type of look that I would want, where there's a lot more, you know, pink and white going on throughout the blank. It's more kind of homogeneous, is that the right word? I don't know. Evenly dispersed. Like I said, I'm really just hogging off material on these things. This isn't really the way that I would turn a pen. I'm just not that worried about what the surface looks like, you know. Look at that, that's pretty nice looking. I like that. What do you guys think about this one? Do you like this one? You're at a cookout. Nice. What'd you have? Sounds good. I want to go to a cookout. Okay. Let me just take this thing off here. Just pop it out and we'll give you guys a look at this thing. I like this the best personally. I think this just has the most character. Oh, I got to plug in the camera. It's gonna die. I don't know. I'm digging that personally. That was kind of, in my head, that's kind of what I was like going for. That kind of look. Somewhat. Hot dogs, pulled pork, and fix it. Nice, that sounds good. Laguna 1216 for blanks. You absolutely could. That's a great lathe. Yeah, the 1216, it's for a mini lathe, that's one of the best. And it can really do everything. It's got all the bells and whistles, all the goodies. So yeah, I highly recommend that, you know, if you're looking for that size lathe, that's a good one. And you can do anything on that. I mean, you're limited by the length, but of something you can turn. But I think, oh, did I change that? Oh, my plug came out. There we go. I think we're okay now. Did I catch it in time? Yeah. Well, the camera hasn't died yet. Yeah. It's looking good. Phillips here. Okay. This thing rolling. Gonna give this one more little crank. But yeah, it's the 1216's got, you know, you're gonna have a 1" 8. I'm pretty sure it's a 1" 8 spindle, but you know, that's standard. And you can use all the same accessories and goodies and all that stuff. So yeah, so you know, all you're limited by is the swing and the length of something, but you might even be able to get an extension bed. Chad's got one of those down at Turner's warehouse, and I've kind of played around with that thing. I love the stand. I mean, that thing is just like, if you're getting a mini lathe, that thing is like a Cadillac, Mercedes, whatever your favorite luxury vehicle is. It is nice. I gotta be honest, I like all the Laguna lathes. They got the 15, whatever, 32, 15, 24 maybe. I don't remember all the numbers, but that's a really good one to step up to kind of more like that kind of medium full size. That's a great lathe. The 1836 is awesome, and then I got the 2436, and it is a beast. I mean, this is the lathe. I was kind of going for like the last lathe that I'm gonna buy, but you know, compared to, so I have a Comet. My first lathe was the Comet, and it's like the old version of the Comet. Oh, something just happened. Right there. And I mean, it was fine. It was reasonably decent priced, but I don't know if you can see this thing. I mean, it's very thin. I mean, it's just, it doesn't have much significance to the, you know, it's like it is a mini lathe, you know, kind of thing. But it does have, like, you can go backwards, it's got reverse and all that stuff. It had some bells and whistles, variable. But, I mean, it had very big limitations. Whereas, like, the 1216 and then whatever the Jet one is, their flagship, like mini, they actually don't even, like, call them minis. They call them midis, M-I-D-I. Because they're really, like, I mean, they do pretty much everything a full-size lathe. They just don't have the length or the swing, you know. But they're massive. Everything's really heavy duty on them. And so for minis, I kind of wish I would have just bought you know, one of the better. They didn't have the Laguna 1216 when I got started, but probably would have bought that Jet model. I mean, that thing is, it's just, there's so much more significant. There's one of the problems I had was it just, you got vibration and stuff because the castings and everything, the bed, all the components of the lathe were light, you know, whereas like the 1216, that's a heavy duty lathe. The bed is massive. So if you get one of those, good luck with it. You know, you're gonna have fun. It'll be a great first lathe. You'll be able to do anything you want. All right, let's see where we're at on this one. Is the battery dead again? No, we got it. I think we're okay. Problem is the cable that I have hooked up to this thing is kind of janky. I think we're good. As long as I don't breathe or touch it. Look at it funny. All right, that's a pretty good bit. Let's see where we're at now. A little bit of swirling there. Not a lot going on yet. Definitely got some intermixing going on, but it's not really showing me a whole lot on the end yet. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Not bad. We're not very far into that one yet. That's also kind of an indication, you know, I mean, we're not very deep. And just by having that little stir stick in the tube and just kind of pulling it up, why I think that that's a good way to go is you're just going to get more movement, more mixing of the two colors further out. So a lot of times, you know, you can get pretty good looking, you know, on those first ones, we got reasonable, you know, results, but because I'm kind of moving this thing around further out to the edges of the tubes, you're going to get more of that kind of variation further out. So you don't have to like turn way into these things before you start to really see a difference from like that just outside, you know, the blank. But I mean, they look even better on the outside, even the way that and part of that has to do with the way that I poured them also. I think it's like the combination. Now, one test that I'm going to have to do So I think if I had to boil it down on figuring out how you want to pour your vertical blanks, you know, you're going to need to know the temperature that you start pouring at, and that may slightly fluctuate depending on how many colors or, you know, whatever, how complicated the pour is going to be. But in general, you should have a pretty good range of what your temperature you want to, you know, hone that in. You're going to need to have some sort of a pouring technique of some sort, whether it's completely just random or you have a very specific thing that you do. The pour technique is going to be another thing. And then I think the third thing is, do you swirl it or not? I think those three things are going to really kind of, you know, figure out your method, let's say. So I have a feeling that 115 or so is probably going to be my pour temperature. Somewhere between 110 and 120 at the temperature that the shop is now, like in the 80s. I may have to change that in the winter, and I think that my pour method is going to just be a random kind of smattering, you know. But then I think what I'm going to have to do is do a test where everything stays the same, but on one of them I have those little sticks and see what that looks like, and on the other one I don't do the stick thing at all. I think that'll be a really interesting test. But I also want to do, one other test that I want to do is the dirty pour. Yeah, I like the negative rake cutter. There's just absolutely no way to screw up with the negative rake on resin. I mean, I have a full set of, I started with, you know, your normal high-speed steel gouges, and they work fine. I mean, if you're good with them and that's what you're comfortable with. But I just think that you're gonna run into issues at some point. I don't know if you guys watch Pole Barn and Moon Pie Creations. I love these guys because they pull out their gouges, and then when it gets rough, then they pull out Carbide, and I'm just like, why don't you just use Carbide on resin, you know? I will say, if you're doing like hybrid stuff, sometimes you know the gouges are a little bit better, but and they do different stuff. But I just think on resin, the negative rake, it cuts it like butter. I mean, I can literally hold it with one hand. If I did this with a standard cutter or a traditional gouge, it would blow up in my face. So there's like no way to screw up with these things. You know, that's why I use them. Yeah, and then, you know, if you're just starting with wood turning, you know, there's you know, if all I was doing was wood turning, you know, we're not talking resin. If all I was doing was turning wooden bowls and stuff like that, I would, well, it depends on what your goals are down the road, I think. But to get into turning, Carbide is so much easier to use. Anybody can do it, and you can start making full-on projects just as good as any traditional tool, you know. But if you're just getting started and you go down the traditional tool route, then you got to learn how to sharpen those things, which it's not difficult, but you got to buy a grinder, and you're going to probably want to buy like the Wolverine, you know, grinding jig, and all this stuff goes with it, where this is an Allen wrench and a Carbide cutter, and you can have fun, you know, making projects without worrying about, did I get the right angle on my tool grind and all that kind of stuff. So I think it just, and these last longer before you have to like rotate them or do anything. So it's just so much easier. That's why they call them easy wood tools, you know. It's so that people can get into wood turning and not have this complicated aspect. But when it comes to resin, the negative rake Carbide cutters, I mean, they turn the best out of anything I've ever tried. They handle it, you can, without, you don't have to worry about chip out and all that kind of, and catches, which I think is great. And one of the big things for me that really, you know, I wasn't really getting chip out with, you know, Alumilite blanks, Alumilite clear, they're pretty good. Even if you're using traditional tools, you shouldn't have too much chip out, or even like standard Carbide. Where it really comes into play for me is hollowing. I mean, these things were a total game changer. I hated hollowing resin things because I was just white knuckle on the tool because I kept getting catches all the time. To I love hollowing. I never get catches. I don't have to worry about that anymore. So it was a pretty big game changer for me. And I really do think for people that are just starting out, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you want to get into traditional tools, you can always do that down the road, you know, as you progress. But I think it's just that time and money when you're just getting started. I mean, I don't know, even if you really think that you want to go down like the, you know, you want to eventually be turning lots of stuff, and you're, you know, like if you're a bowl turner, you're going to be able to turn a bowl a lot faster and more accurately, I think, in general, with a high-speed steel bowl gouge. But to get to the point where you really can handle that tool to the point where you're saving time, you know, and that accurate with it, you got to spend a lot of hours, whereas you can get a perfectly good looking bowl. Nobody's going to know what you turned it with Carbide, and you didn't have to spend a bunch of time learning how to use the tool, money with all the rest of the setup. And for the most part, I mean, you can get away with just buying one of the round cutters and pretty much turn everything, bowls and pens and whatever you want. So I'm a big fan of Carbide in general, but it gives you a chance for not much money, to buy a Carbide tool and start turning and see if you really like it, if it's going to be something that you continue doing for a long time. And if down the road you decide that, yeah, I want to be a little bit more, I want to learn the traditional tools and all that, well then fine, you can go and spend the money down the road once you're not just going to give up on it. I think that's part of the thing with Carbide. But if you watch Carl Jacobson, he's excellent. He can turn with any kind of tool. He turns, he's a master with every type, whether it's Carbide or not, and he pulls out the right tool for the job at that point. Gives you the choice to, in some cases, a regular high-speed steel gouge is going to be a better choice than Carbide if you have both, and you know how to use them both. So I'm liking this. This is looking pretty good. What do you guys think about this? It's a little bit more just kind of vertical. We're not getting a lot of swirl in this one. I don't know. All right, so I think, well, number one, we can turn off the dust collector, so I don't have to listen to that anymore. And we'll pop this guy out and we will look at some results on the third test. I don't know. I think I personally kind of gravitate towards this, but I will say the first round, these look pretty darn good too. Those aren't too bad. A little bit chunkier. And then, the second thing that we did, I mean, these are just not impressive at all compared to the other ones because there's just kind of half and half. And again, I think that was my pour technique, how I poured them. So let me stop. We're gonna head over. I mean, that's all that we were doing today. So there's not much else to do. But I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts about these three tests. Like, what do you think about them? I think I can tell them apart, but I want to kind of try to keep these things together. Well, let's talk. How about that? All right, so let's see. Yeah, so we're going back to Mark. He was talking about the traditional tools with Moon Pie and Doug. Yeah, so, but I mean, how much faster is kind of the question sometimes. Like in that case, like if you just put a standard carbide cutter on, also this is one of the things. If you put a standard cutter on, you can hog off a lot more material as well. And then, you know, kind of clean things up with the negative rake. So I don't know, you know, either way. You were able to get lots of chip out using traditional tools. Yeah, well, for pens, so I never had a problem really with pens. So like thin diameter things, I could turn those quite well with just a gouge. Now, one thing that I did do for my resin, and I actually didn't even realize I had done this, I forgot to change the angle on my Wolverine jig, and so I started sharpening my just gouges, so not bowl gouges, but my spindle gouges. I started sharpening them at a 50-degree angle, and I got way better results doing it that way. So just wanted to kind of mention that. I also kind of cheated, I guess, but it just kind of made sense. That steeper angle kind of, for some reason, made it better, I guess. I don't know. But compared to, like I said, I mean, I can sit there with one hand, I can hollow with one hand, and you don't get, it doesn't grab because it's less aggressive. A lot of people used scrapers that they would put a negative rake on. This is where the whole idea came from, and those work well too for high-speed steel. If you shave down the top so it's not coming in, you know, flat on the top of that tool, you kind of shave down so it's at a negative rake. A lot of people were getting good results doing that, and I have you know, negative rake scrapers as well, but the problem is high-speed steel doesn't last nearly as long, you know, that edge. So you're constantly going back and forth between the sharpener and, you know, and a lot of the things that I turn are abrasive, like really abrasive. So in many cases, I wouldn't even recommend using high-speed steel because you're going to be sharpening more than you're turning. You know, for certain stabilized woods that are super dense and hard, or, you know, like the glow powder blanks and stuff. There's just certain things, even pine cones, you're going to be sharpening more often than with just, you know, resin. So a couple of, it depends though. Like I said, it depends on where you're at, what's going on. When my bin is full of shaking, you can't recycle. This is not a recyclable plastic. It's just plastic. So it goes to the dump. Additional tools. Yeah, scraping mode. Definitely. Order of preference 3, 1, 2. Yeah, me too. I think that's my. Yeah, I'm gonna get shots overhead. Sorry, I was kind of trying to read. Oh yeah, I've lost. I went through a few bouts of weight loss. Mainly, I did it because I wanted to get just in better, like physical, like fitness, you know, shape for like snowboarding. I was really worried because I was pretty heavy. Like if you look at my first videos, I was pretty heavy, and I'm trying to do like double black diamond stuff on a snowboard, and I'm weighing 265 pounds, and I was like, man, I'm gonna get hurt because I'm not in shape for this. So. Let's see here. Yeah, so these are the number 2. This was number 1. These look pretty darn good, actually. I got to be honest. Those aren't bad. It's just, you know, pretty chunky. So again, this was just pouring, you know, kind of like back and forth. I'll have to go and look. I think I was just kind of pouring sort of back and forth on these. The way that I did these, I remember now. It was this mold, and I kind of like picked up. Whoa, let's do this. I picked up like the white, and I was like boom, 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 and then I picked up the pink, and I did like all the tubes per cup, you know, or per, you know, color, and so that worked out well. But you know, it was poured at once. So, you know, effectively, you could probably get away with just doing it that way without even doing the swirly thing. and you could alter it. It could get a little bit closer to this look if you just poured, less at once, kind of thing, or like, went back and forth. This one was terrible, but I screwed up, and I think that you could get better results doing the 2 cups at the same time if the nozzles are going into the same hole. But what's going to happen is it's going to pour out, and it's going to kind of pour half and half down the thing. So in that case, one thing that might actually be worth trying, here's another thought, is you could pour both at the same time. Oh good, that didn't fall. You could basically pour both of them at the same time and use like a thicker, so I was using a pretty thin, and this would change stuff. Like the size of the like thing that you're stirring with is going to change how things actually look in the end. But I just had this kind of thin thing, and I pulled it through. You could possibly get away with just pouring pink on one side, white on the other, and then pull this, really mix that up. There's all kinds of different ways to do all this stuff. I think that, if you're going to go for production like me, I need to find the simplest way, though. It can't be too complex. So these ones were kind of the worst, I think. It just didn't work out so well. I do like the way that these look, and it would be a little different if I had these polished up, I think. That might be a little bit more telling. They are feathered more. I kind of like that feathering. I don't know though. Yeah, number 1 looks pretty good too. Yeah, the record power lathes are really good too. I turned on the Herald, I think it was, or I don't know, it was kind of a smaller one at Maker Central. I think the Laguna is a little bit more solid than some of the record power. They're a little bit thinner, but I mean they are pretty. They're good. They're really good lathe. They just look thinner. The components are a little bit thinner. Yeah. And I mean, somebody I saw on Etsy is selling these tubes that have like some sort of a 3D printed cup on the top of the tube. I don't know how cleanup and all that kind of stuff goes with those, but I don't know that you need that. Like I said, I really think that you're better off just sticking the tubes together. This is not a particularly awesome way to do it this way. I would throw that method out and go with something like one of these types of things. And you could make your own silicone mold. It would be expensive. I mean, it would cost some money, and these things aren't cheap either, these P-Town subby ones. But you could even get these things probably a little bit even closer than this and like make a ring, kind of like, I don't think you could get them this close with silicone. You'd probably rip it when you're demolding. And to be honest, Fred's probably done enough research and development on this that this is probably kind of his. He probably figured out this is good. This amount of like half an inch between, and you won't rip them. But I think that this is the way to, this is a good way. I think that the next pour that I do, and I'm going to probably do this. I might even do this today actually. I'm going to grab some pink and white. I'm going to have the 2 cups sitting, down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at probably 115, and I'm just going to kind of do like quick, random pours. Do one like that, and then one, and just leave it basically, and then do one that has stir sticks of some sort. I think I am going to have to kind of try some different thickness, diameter or whatever, stir stick things. Because this might not have really pulled a whole lot of resin around the way that I did it. It may not have really, done a whole lot. This might have been a better way to go. something thicker like that. So I don't know. I still have a long ways to go on this before I've really kind of settled on how I want to do things. But hopefully, you know, the thoughts and the experiments, seeing kind of how these things turned out, will help you guys, you know, kind of focus on something, you know, get to a starting point that's not 10 steps back like that. You know, that's the whole point. Is I'm hoping that you're still going to have to put in a ton of work to figure out how to get, you know, the results that you want. There's no video on the planet that's going to tell you how to do this perfect the first time. Because your techniques changed. They can tell you that this works perfect for them, but the way that you do things, the way, you know, and I'm talking actual, like sometimes just the physical things, you may not be able to do that, recreate that method exactly. You can recreate the temperature, you can recreate like the stick and the tube and certain things like that, but what I find, and a lot of people, you know, still struggle with even horizontal pours, and a lot of it has to do with how you actually physically pour the liquid together. You know, it's not just temperature to get certain results anyway. So, I don't know. Let's see here. So and too hard to drill. Yeah, sometimes drilling can be a little bit tough. What I do on, just to kind of show you, and you could do this on your, oh shoot, I don't know if I can unplug this and charge the battery pack. Let's see if I can get this done before my camera dies. Ooh, I don't know if it's gonna work. So what I do is I use a miter gauge and a clamp. I gotta switch the camera view, I think. Yeah. Hopefully this will not die before I show you. There you go. So, and you could do this on the bandsaw, but you'll need to get a miter gauge. But I use a clamp. It's just and that's all I do, and it works. It cuts fine. Same thing. I have a sled on my bandsaw. I'm just gonna go bring the sled over because I don't think my cord's long enough. And I have a video on making this sled also, if you want to see this, but you don't need to make anything all fancy. Same thing. I just use a clamp, and then that works fine. Yeah, it is kind of tough with those things being round. They tend to want to spin. But the clamp, I've never had one come loose on either the table saw or the bandsaw. And if you like the finer tooth blade, the more teeth, finer pitch blade on the bandsaw, the less it's going to want to kind of spin it. Kind of grab on and push it down. So that's how I do that. Drilling, I agree, kind of a pain, but one thing that can kind of help is if you just scuff up the outside. So it depends on how you're drilling it on a drill press. If you're using like the pen, one of those pen clamp things, a lot of times if you just like scuff up the outside of the blank with like 120 grit sandpaper, that'll give it enough grip so it's not spinning. And then if you're using I use that same drill chuck, or not drill chuck, shoot, camera's not over at the lathe. I usually use this chuck. This is a Barracuda. Oh no. It died. Well, you can go back and watch the what we were doing earlier. You probably saw it. I use that chuck and it grabs on pretty well, but they have, let's see, I'm trying to think. Collet chucks work pretty well. They really grip on to round things well if you're drilling. So that might be something to look into. I linked to the Beal collet chuck. But there's cheaper ones out there as well. The Beal's a really nice one. It's a little bit more expensive though, but they carry that at Turner's Warehouse. If you're thinking about getting into bespoke or kitless pen making, I would really recommend getting a collet chuck sooner than later. But that can kind of help hold it, you know. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of people that like bend the rods and do all that. I got to be honest, I really don't think that's necessary. Because this one I used to, you can kind of see it's all, because I saw like that YouTube video and they're like, oh, and you twist it and do all. I don't, honestly. That's just my opinion. I don't think that really changes anything. Yeah, I like the Gatling gun. This thing. So this is 7 tubes. Now the only issue is to get something round. I don't even know how many more I would to make it like round again. I mean, I'd probably have to add like 12 more or something like that. Like it's not just another like 7. It'd be like, I don't know, there's a lot more that you would have to do. So I think 7 at a time is a good number. And like, frankly, I think just having multiple 7s, Gatling guns is the way to go. Use the pen jaws. Yeah, so those are not particularly good with round. I will definitely say that. It's, yeah, getting the drill bit stuck. You still might try scuffing the outside. It just, no matter what, you're going to get some better grip if it's just kind of scuffed up. You know, trying to grab onto, you know, the surface of these things like straight out of the mold, the PVC pipe or whatever, they're so like smooth. And on top of that, you also will probably have stoner, a little bit of the mold release on there, and I mean, they're just slippery at that point. And so just you can kind of wipe them off with a little bit of well, first I would just kind of scuff them up a little bit, and then I would maybe try wiping off with some like denatured alcohol, and that should help give you a little bit more grip in that. Even in the pen jaws, you should be a little bit better off. Let's see here, pin jaws. And I think what you're talking about is like, so like there's pen jaws and then there's pin jaws, I believe. I think this is what you're talking about with pin jaws, right? Like the long kind of things that kind of, I don't know. let's go for the overhead. That's just not working. So it'd be kind of like this, like these ones. Those will work pretty decent too, but I mean, you're still stuck with just 2, you know, little surfaces. I can't. So I don't know if they still sell that. I'd like to talk to Easy Wood Tools, because it would be really nice if they sold something that would grip onto these types of things a little bit better. The Barracuda chuck jaws that I use today to hold those things grab onto blanks. Those are really good ones. Barracuda chuck. I just don't know. Yeah, so I don't think it's a great chuck in general, but it definitely, those jaws really work pretty well for that. So Penn State has the Barracudas. I don't know if Nova has jaws like they probably do. Nova's got a lot of jaw sets that you can buy. Yeah, so the Barracuda, if you, it's just kind of, I mean, to spend $160 on a chuck to grab pen blanks with, I think you're better off just going and getting a collet chuck. I think they're cheaper. Actually, they're like half the price. But I mean, this isn't an affiliate link or anything, but you can look at that. It's the same chuck that I was using. I think you're better off going with a collet chuck. They're cheaper. I mean, even the Beal, which is an expensive collet chuck, I think it's only $80. So, yeah. Tried sanding, taping, even drilling a hole through one end. Oh, man. Do you have a drill press? I don't. Unfortunately, my camera's dead, so I can't show you. But I have the, one of those like pen mill vise things. And it works okay. Again, you're still stuck with, like, it's just kind of hitting on two sides, though. One thing that I've tried is, how did I do that before? I'd wrap the blank in leather. Yeah, I would put like leather around it in one of my pen drilling vise things I used to use and at this point I've kind of gone back to the drill press. It's just faster. I had this drill press that I absolutely hated, and it just didn't drill straight, and it was terrible. So, but my new drill press works a lot better. So I've been using that, and you could like wrap it with like leather. Sometimes that helped from spinning. So, yeah, I would just, so small, yeah, okay, so yeah, so these are pin jaws, and then there's like the pen. Oh, that's the wrong camera. Pin, P-I-N, and then there's like the pen ones where it's like just two things, and really what those are supposed to do is like grab the corners of a pen blank, of a square one, and they work great for that, but for round ones, they would probably be like the worst. So I don't know, like if you're willing to spend some money, guaranteed, hands down, the best thing to do would get a collet chuck. All right. And you can get them at all kinds of price points. Here's a collet chuck. This one's a Morse taper style. And the way it works, if you're, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but there's these things inside called collets. And this is a 5/8 collet that's in this one right now. You just pop it in there, and then this thing would hold somewhere between, and it goes a little above 5/8. So you'd stick your material in there, and then as you're clamping this down, it's tightening, it's squeezing these jaws. But look at how many jaws you got there holding down. These are made to hold round things. And so this is my Beal. This is the Beal collet chuck, and I've got a mandrel in here. I was just messing around with, this is one of the blanks that I poured. But I got a brass mandrel in there, and it's, clamping down. And I mean, the thing it will not spin. So I would go for that. And like I said, there's different prices. I think the Beal at Turner's Warehouse, I think it was about $80, but I mean, it is significant. It is a nice piece of of metal. It's a really good collet chuck, but any collet chuck is going to do. So you can pick up, like on Amazon, cheaper ones. I think I got this one on Amazon. And it works okay. The biggest problem I had with this is they didn't send me a spanner wrench, so it didn't clamp too well on things because I couldn't even tighten it. I know I could have just bought a spanner wrench, but anyway, hopefully that'll help out, and you'll get better results with it. Silicone mat could work too, yeah. Cool. All right, guys. So, like I said, if you have any last minute questions, toss those into the chat. But one more reminder, if you want to pick up these t-shirts to help support Vets Turn, they're available at Easy Wood Tools. And I'll get you guys a link real quick. I need a drink. I've been talking for 2 hours straight. You guys are like, shut up. All right, so here's a link to the Vets Turn t-shirts. Again, 100% of the proceeds. Easy Wood Tools is just making these, selling them, and 100% of the proceeds go to Vets Turn. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's an organization that basically gets combat veterans that have, like PTSD or injuries. They get them a full-on turning setup, give them to them, as well as instruction, and get them turning for therapy, basically. And so I don't know how many people they've hooked up with these sets, but basically this t-shirt, I need a drink. Ah, much better. Basically, these t-shirts are just a fundraiser to get them some money. Easy Wood Tools sponsors them, and they provide tools to this. There's all kinds of different people that are, you know, like they get a lathe, they get the tools, they get, you know, everything they need, basically, all the accessories, and including instruction from, you know, professional turners and stuff. So it's a really cool thing. So if you want to pick one of these guys up, they're 35 bucks. They're only available until August 22nd, though. So head over there, grab one of these shirts, and sport it. They're really nice shirts. It's good material and everything. Here's the back. Pretty cool thing. So I just wanted to mention that. And let's see here. I got a wrench and a round rod, I know. Yeah. I didn't even get a round rod. I got nothing. I'm like, I guess I'll just use my hands. Hey, Donna, how's it going? We're just about to wrap things up, unfortunately. But we'll probably continue this a little bit. Like I said, I'm thinking maybe we'll have to see. I think if people aren't like, oh my God, not more of these vertical test pours. There are some more tests that I think we can do. Like I said, the dirty pour would, I think, be a pretty good one to do on the live stream, as well as possibly doing like a, you know, maybe doing the comparison with, like I said, I think I kind of have an idea of how I want to pour these things. But, you know, like either doing like different types of sticks or like stick and no stick kind of thing. So we may do this again on the live stream, but eventually I think once I've kind of settled on something, I'll probably put a video together, just a normal one that's like short and just is like, you know, here's a technique, here's how I'm doing it. And so that'll be, you know, down the road a little bit later. But be looking, I'm hoping maybe next week I can, by like next Sunday, not tomorrow, but today's Saturday. Yeah. So not tomorrow, but like next Sunday, maybe. I'm hoping I can maybe, depending on what it is, get the next mystery box video up. If it's not next Sunday, it'll be for sure the week after that. So anyway, guys, I think that's about it. I think we'll wrap things up. So Wednesday we'll be back in action. Actually, I already know what we're going to do on Wednesday. So in my truck, it's a manual transmission. And so this was my original gear shift. The leather was falling off, and so I made a gear shift for it, and I used the amazing ClearCast Plus. I wanted to see how that stuff held up in an environment where it's getting just bombarded by UV light. It has high UV inhibitors in it. And so the problem is I wanted to compare it to just regular Alumilite clear. So I've given it about a year at this point, and I want to take that one out and I want to replace it with one made with Alumilite Clear Slow, which has pretty much no UV inhibitors in it at all. Leave it in there for a year and see how it fares. And the main thing is yellowing of the resin. So we'll pull it out, inspect it, and see what's going on. But I want to pour a blank. So I think we're going to probably do that next Wednesday. And then we'll turn that up on Saturday and I'll get it installed in the truck. The other thing is I really did not like the way I ended up making the replacement, the one that's in there now. It's too small and it's actually kind of too pointed. I didn't get a good rounding on the top. And so it's not comfortable at all to shift with. So, no, yeah, we started at noon today. On Saturdays, I start at noon. No problem, though. The replay will be up if you want to go back and watch the fun that we had today. But yeah, so I want another shot at shaping a better handle, number one. But I also want to do that comparison test and see, okay, after a year, how yellow is the Alumilite Clear? So far, I really don't think that the amazing ClearCast Plus has yellowed at all, which is mind-boggling to me because like resin's yellow. That's one guaranteed fact, you know. So it's held up pretty well. One person in the comments of that video was like, well, there's UV blockers on the glass on your window. But the thing is, without even being outdoors, like exposed directly to UV light, resin's yellow. You know, I have lots of examples of that in my shop. This is Alumilite Clear, And I don't know if this is really, if you can really see this, but this was made, it was clear, not tinted yellow, and it's totally yellow, and it's never seen light. So I don't, and the other thing is those windows only block certain UV rays, I think anyway, but I'm actually pretty surprised, because I think if I just left a chunk of Alumilite clear, you know, resin sitting in my truck, like under the seat, I think it would probably yellow after a year. So just to let you guys know what's maybe coming up. Otherwise, maybe we'll go back and do a little bit more testing on this stuff, because I do want to kind of get going on that stuff and see. So one of those two, I just wanted to let you guys know. But either way, hopefully you guys will come back on Wednesday. That one's at 3 p.m. Pacific time. And I appreciate you guys all joining the fun today, seeing what the results were. Hopefully we'll have some even more like answers and conclusions soon. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I will see you guys all on the next stream.